And good evening. I'm Jonathan Higgins,
I'm Casper Hileman.
and welcome to this edition of Train Aficionado Live, where we're learning a little bit more about an historic train depot on the East Coast. Casper, tell us a little bit about this station.
So the station was established in 1885, primarily as a freight station, but we did have a lot of passenger service. And it, by about 1930, which was the greatest extent of passenger service here at the Seaboard station, you would be able to get a ride all the way up to New York City, as far south as Miami, and to the border of Texas.
So the station, it looks like a brick structure. Is it mostly all brick, or is it a mix of the exterior wood and brick?
There is a little bit of wood, but it is primarily a brick structure with a slate roof. We have wooden columns in the front, so I'm sure we'll see some photographs later, and it looks basically the same as it did in 1885.
Yeah, speaking of that, let's take a look at some of those photographs here. We'll pull those up and take a look here. Wow, I mean, what a beautiful station. So, from what I understand correctly, looking at some of the maps, there was actually railroad tracks on both sides of the station. Is that right?
Yes, on the freight side, which the picture you're looking at right now, the frontage area right there, that is the passenger side. And then on the back end of the building would be the freight side. So we had three railroad tracks.
Oh wow. So which side ended up surviving? I know one of the sides are abandoned at this point.
So the front side is where the passenger service primarily happened. That has all been removed. And on the back side, the freight side, is where the CSX line currently runs.
Okay, I see. And from what I understand, this is a pretty busy line, so you probably get a lot of rail fans that want to watch the CSX trains go by.
Oh, yes, sir. I get the farthest rail fan I get, God bless her heart, is actually a mother who brings her rail fan son here all the way from South Carolina. So she brings him here, and we have a beautiful tower. You can see it in the block print on that you're showing right now. That building that looks like a tower, that is our tower. And it's where the railroad telegraph operator was located. And she will bring him there, and he will sit up there with his camera, rail fanning for hours whenever he hears there's something particularly interesting on his dispatch radio. And she will just sit there and we'll have discussions, and it's just a great time, and it's nice to see that.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed that a lot of kids have really got involved with trains. And the other great thing about social media, there's a way for them to be able to know they're not the only ones that are interested in trains. You know, there's a lot of Facebook groups, there's a lot of Instagram accounts that are dedicated particularly just to train and railway photography. There's even a lot of groups that are just interested in the railroad history and also abandoned railroad lines. I mean, right here, you've told me that that passenger line that was in the front of the station was abandoned and no longer there anymore. So only the CSX that line that it's on right now is being used.
Yes. So CSX runs to the Port of Norfolk inland. So we have a lot of intermodal traffic running to and from the port. So it is very active. I get three really large trains every day running by my building, less than 15 feet away.
And that's amazing. You said that you get a lot of rail fans. So when the station's open, just like that mother and son,
Mhm.
people are able to go up into the tower and rail fan from up there when the facility is open. Is that right?
Oh, yes. Yeah, we encourage it.
And what time are you guys open? Are you open 7 days a week?
We are open 7 days a week. We are open from 10 o'clock AM till 5 o'clock PM with a brief 1 hour lunch
Oh,
from 12 to 1.
that is awesome. So when people come to the station, what will they see? I know the awesome thing is being able to rail fan in the tower. From what I understand, you guys have an HO scale layout that's kind of depicting what the area looked like back in its heyday.
Yes, we have a rather large HO scale model railroad setup of Suffolk on a Monday morning in the year 1907.
Wow. So that's basically, was that the heyday when everything was bustling around railroad wise for that community?
It our heyday spanned a large expanse of time because after the Civil War, when a city called Petersburg here was involved in a year-long siege, that was the rail hub of the area. When that was destroyed during the Civil War, this area's railroad infrastructure survived. So our railroad hub time period lasted almost 100 years.
Wow. I mean, that is awesome. I mean, a lot of railroads, I know doing research with a lot of railroads, it's not usually that long of a span. So that is
Right.
awesome. Just to be able to see. And this structure, from what I understand, is the original structure. There was a fire at this facility at one point. Is that right?
Yes, in 1994, the building was still owned by CSX, but it wasn't used. It was all boarded up, just looking like that photograph you just put. And then in 1994, in the middle of winter, a homeless person came in trying to get warm and tried to use one of our three fireplaces that we used to have here, but hadn't been maintained. And it caught fire within the walls and gutted the interior.
Wow. So what ended up happening after that? So clearly we know the story that the building was saved, but how much work had to be, done to be able to save the structure?
I always put it this way, it was tragic, but also a blessing in disguise because it really invigorated the community to remember what it was like when they came here in the 1940s, 50s, 60s to go visit their grandparents, to go visit their cousins, their aunts, their uncles. And it took them a full 6 years to raise enough funds to redo basically the entire interior except a few minor areas like the tower, which was all concreted up so it didn't suffer major damage. And then we have what's called the Planters Peanuts Room because we're the home of Planters Peanuts. That area did suffer smoke damage, but they didn't have to tear out walls or anything like that in that area. But everything else was completely redone flooring, ceilings, electrical, everything was done by sweat equity and funds raised by private organizations here in Suffolk.
I mean, that is awesome. I mean, it's sad that that fire occurred, but it actually gave this building new life, essentially. And like you said, this building has so many memories that are tied to the community. Um, and so you mentioned Planters Peanuts, the home of Planters Peanuts. Now, when people come to visit the station, is there, other than your room, is there a museum for planters there also?
No, there is not because we actually have a planter's factory still here in Suffolk operating. For about 40 years, Suffolk was the largest producer of peanuts in the entire world, and
Wow.
and it's still an ongoing concern. So they don't give tours at planters or anything like that, but you can drive within 15 minutes of this place and not see a field that grows peanuts.
Oh, wow, that is super cool. I mean, so you guys basically house that factory's museum because I've seen the video, which is
Yes.
really cool. And Mr. Peanuts is, I mean, everybody knows him, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. What was it, 2 years ago when they killed off Mr. Peanut? We had shrines, we had all sorts of stories written about it. It was really interesting to see people's reaction to them killing Mr. Peanut. They would come put flowers. We have a series of Mr. Peanut statues throughout our town,
Yep.
and they would come put flowers as like an homage to him.
That is so funny. Um, so you mentioned, the museum gained a lot of support. Um, do you, in order to be able to operate, do you continue to be able to get support from the community, and how do they do that?
We are very blessed. In 2017, after the private organizations, they ran this place as a nonprofit from when they opened it in 2000 to 2017. In 2017, the city actually took it over. So we are funded by the city of Suffolk through taxpayer dollars.
Oh, that is awesome. So now, this place will be always preserved. People can always come and visit.
Mhm.
When did you guys get the caboose? I see there's a caboose there. Was that under the point when the city took it over, or was that before? I mean, it looks really awesome.
It was roughly around the same time that the city took it over because the private people, the Nansemond Suffolk Historical Society, they're the previous runners of the museum, they were in talks to find one. So, right about the same time the transition, we got the caboose.
And the caboose is actually a part of the museum's, to be able to go inside of it and be able to take a look in there. Is that right?
Correct? Yes.
Tell us a little bit about the caboose. Does it have any local ties to the line, or what's the history of it?
So it is an NNW caboose, so it is not a Seaboard caboose. It was difficult to find a CSX caboose, I guess, that the city could afford to purchase from the company. But now it has ties because it has been refurbished by local Boy Scouts as their Eagle Scout project. All of the upholstery, we have uh, all original equipment in there. We have a coal fire stove. We have couches that turn into beds. We have all of the original interior, everything like that. The only thing the city has to do right now is replace some windows just from incidental damage over the time that we've had it.
Wow, that's not bad. I mean, that's pretty awesome. So when people visit the museum, they're able to see what a caboose would look like when it was
Oh, yes.
operating on the railroad,
Oh,
uh,
yes. Absolutely.
which is awesome. How did you get involved in this? It seems like you have a vast background about the railroads, and how did you come into this?
So I am trained as a historian. That's what my degree is in. I'm trained as a military historian. So through that, I've had to study logistics, everything like that, and my specialty is roughly the First and Second World Wars. So lots of railroad logistic information, and quite honestly, before I got this job, I could not identify a specific engine, nothing like that. So I have had to learn on the fly. Thankfully, my patrons have taught me more about railroads than I even knew possible. So I will get a 6, 7, 8-year old patron here, and they will tell me about railroad engines, and I will just sit there and I will listen because they are my subject matter experts.
Yeah, it's amazing how early they can, when they're interested in something like railroads, how quickly they can retain all the information. I'm sure you get some old timers as well, that can give stories of the station too. I mean, it's just amazing that you have a scope of people that are able to provide you, current stuff and stuff in the past.
Oh yeah, I we have a photograph in one of our rooms here of a scene here in Suffolk of a diesel engine coming into town, and there's a man who has his son on his shoulders, and they're waiting for the train to pick someone up. That man and his son came into the museum. They looked at the photograph and said, "Hey, that's me and my son." You know how I know that? Because we were the only ones in Suffolk with that model of car in 1957.
My
So
word.
uh, I get these people coming in all the time with direct, real world experience, telling me stories about how much this place meant to them, how the railroad impacted them. I get retirees from the railroad coming here because they worked in this building. This was a part of their life.
Wow. I mean, that's amazing, that just for them to be able to see that photograph now, that's part of your museum display. And you've met the people that are in that photo.
Yeah, I'm truly blessed.
Wow. So tell us a little bit about, some of the exhibits in there. We know that you have the Planters Peanuts
Mhm.
exhibit. You also have the layout, the HO scale layout. What else can they see in the station?
So in the we have telegraph equipment, talking about the importance of the telegraph here in Suffolk. Suffolk actually has the sad distinction of being the first railroad fatality in the United States.
Jeez.
About 10 to 12 miles from where I sit is where that happened. Suffolk has had a railroad presence since the 1830s.
Wow.
Uh, I always tell people, don't think of the railroad like the railroads in the West with large, beautiful, amazing steam engines. When we started, we were small, underpowered engines, sometimes pulled by horses.
Wow. Oh, yeah. So the roots are deep right there for the railroads.
Yes.
That's for sure. I mean, a lot of, like you said, the expansion out to the west came later. I mean, so it's a little different for the history of the East. I mean, everything was just starting out railroad wise, and then as the expansion, the larger locomotives came to life, and so on. Um, I just can't get over, you guys are open 7 days a week. You're a rail fan. I mean, it looks like a great line to be able to stand on the property track side, be able to go up to the tower, and be able to get a different perspective. Kind of looking down on the railroad line. Can you tell me a little bit of history about the lines that went through there? I know, was Virginian Railways one of those lines that went past the station?
Oh, yes, sir. So we were talking earlier about the freight side. The Virginian actually was on the passenger side, no longer exists. But yes, it ran directly in front of us. And sometimes the Virginian was a competitive company with Seaboard and the other ancillary railroads, but it was cooperative as well because sometimes it would be on the Seaboard side or the Seaboard would be on the Virginian side. It would all depend on what was rolling on the rails that day or whatever was happening.
Yeah, we even noticed that today with a lot of freight railroads. They'll do things for one another, although they're big competitors for one another. So I'm happy that that kind of stayed, throughout the years. The Virginian Railways is one of my favorites. I actually was able to photograph the Norfolk Southern Heritage Unit. That was my first
Mhm.
heritage unit, which was the Virginian.
Wow.
And, so it has a special place for me being my first Norfolk Southern Heritage Unit. So I was kind of
Mhm.
excited to see, that this
Mhm.
is part of the roots of the Virginian Railways.
So are you a fan of the 611, I would assume?
Oh yeah, 611 as
Mhm.
well. Has 611 been through there as of at any point or?
Not recently. The 611 has not been through here recently. It did go through other parts near us, but not my station, no.
Okay. And what is your favorite part of the station? What would be, the place that, if you had a visitor going in there and you wanted to show it off, what would it be?
Oh, the tower.
And now, do you find yourself, becoming a rail fan, kind of being looped into this, into the history of it and being able to be in the facility throughout the week? Do you find yourself, peering out the window, wondering what's going past, for locomotives or what type of train it is?
Oh, every day. Every day I go up in the tower with my cup of coffee in the morning, and I go upstairs and I sit, and I just imagine the stories that have come through my building. If you get here in the morning, there are certain things you'll notice about the building that are different during different times of day. So in the morning when you come in and no one's been in the building long enough, you can smell peanuts that are roasted and you can smell it in the air. You can smell it when you come inside the building. You can smell, depending on how cold or how hot it was, the smell of the wood.
Huh.
You can certain times of year, because we're also right next to a really large cemetery, you can smell cedar berries,
Oh, wow.
and it's just an interesting combination of sensations. And then I just sit up there and I imagine all of the stories that have come through here. That is my favorite part of this place.
Yeah.
Also, I really love the staircase. The staircase is beautiful. It's a beautiful piece of, I consider it art.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. So for someone that's coming out to make their way out to the station to be able to check it out, what are some of the places that they could go visit along with the station? What are some recommendations for some local restaurants or shops in the area that, if somebody's making a journey out and they're going to make a day of it, they're going to visit the museum, do a little bit of rail fanning, maybe in the morning, go out to lunch and maybe come back again. What would you recommend to check out for the local sites?
So we have another really fantastic museum here in Suffolk. It's called Riddick's Folly. And Suffolk has burnt to the ground numerous times in its history. And the last major fire happened in the 1830s. And there was a lumber baron here named Mills Riddick, and he owned roughly a dozen homes here in Suffolk, and they all burned to the ground.
Wow.
After that, he took all of his insurance money and built this gorgeous, beautiful, multi storied home. And everyone in town made fun of him because Suffolk was very rural, very poor, and he outbuilt the neighborhood literally.
Oh
He had the
boy.
nicest home whole in the whole city, and now it's become a museum. And my favorite part about the museum, being a military historian, is Suffolk is the home of a battle, and the Union occupied the town in 1863. They used Riddick's home, what's now called Riddick's Folly, as a hospital. So on that floor, you can see graffiti between Union and Confederate soldiers on the walls.
That's amazing. So they were able to preserve all that.
Yes, after years and years, there were a large group of students that used to go there every year, and they found over time it started to get messed with, but they preserve it now under plexiglass. And also in that same room, the infirmary, you can still see where the operations happened because there are still blood stains on the floor. There is an armory. So the most impressive thing about Riddick's Folly is probably, in my opinion, the curator. His name is Lee. Everyone knows him as Lee. Him and his wife have run that museum for 40 years. He could tell you everything in that entire building, how much it cost, where he got it. He can quote verbatim letters he must have read at least 1,000 times between Mr. Riddick and his family or descendants of his family. Lee is the epitome of what a historian in a museum should be. When I grow up, I want to be like Lee.
Yeah, it seems like he must have an amazing photographic memory to be able to do all that.
Yes, he does. He's an amazing gentleman and very kind and gracious as well.
So this sounds really good. So we've got, of course, the Railroad Museum, and then we've got this amazing place to be able to check out a lot of history there. Um,
Mhm.
so what else can you tell me? Is there like a downtown that people can stroll when they come to the town?
Oh, yes, we are roughly 5 minutes from downtown. We're right off the main business stroll. You could park right at my museum and walk to the restaurants. Uh, our downtown literally looks like it's from the 1930s. We still have buildings that are 100 years old. Parking is plentiful and it's all free, which is lovely here. Uh, an, a great thing is, though, that we're bringing in new restaurants, we're bringing in new businesses, and we're trying to meld this old world look with a new sensibility as well.
So looking at this station, as it is today, looking back at it, in the 90s, a lot of people probably drove past this building and didn't notice it. I don't know how you cannot notice this beautiful building at this point. They did an amazing job restoring this building. I mean, it looks beautiful. So if if people have additional questions, how would you like them to reach you?
They can reach us through our website or they could actually give us a call here at the museum, and you would be able to find all of that information on our museum website. And if we're out, you can leave a message, and we return messages all the time. If you have any questions, you can go and leave a message on through the website or on the phone. I get questions about local history, rail fanning, all sorts of things from people all around the United States. And we try and be good about returning that once we have answers for you, of course. And we're more than welcome. Everyone's more than welcome to come visit us, and we'll give you as much information. Hopefully, ensure everybody has a good time. I'm in the good time business, as I like to put it.
That is awesome. Now, do you guys host any special events in the town or the museum itself?
We host a lot of special events in the town and occasionally in the museum. This past summer, we had roving displays from the UP concerning women on the railroads, war in the railroads. In the town, we have what's called Peanut Fest, celebrating our love of peanuts here in September, late September, early October. We had the Plein Air Festival, which is a an art festival where people paint in the open, in nature, this past summer. Let's see. We have Touch a Truck, of course, usually in town where they bring dump trucks and a little bit of railroad stuff and fire trucks, police cars, military vehicles. We do all of that sort of stuff.
I mean, this is certainly, I definitely want to come out and do some rail fanning and check out the station. I mean, it just looks beautiful. And I think, you guys to be able to restore the tower gives you a different perspective to be able to see, those trains passing the station. It certainly, has that beautiful bird's eye view. And it's so awesome that you do have, the ability to go up there. I mean, as many railroad lines, when you think of a signal tower, an interlocking tower, it's closed off to the public, so you don't have that ability to be able to get that bird's eye view. Where here you can in the station's tower. I'm really looking forward to definitely coming out to Virginia at some point and checking out the station. Anything that else that you want to mention before we wrap up things here?
Just thanks for the opportunity to talk to your patrons. I mean, I truly appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, it's so nice to be able to see that history for the railroads is being preserved. A lot of times, I'm looking for things to post on our social media, and a lot of times it's a structure like this that can't be saved and it's being torn down. I'm so happy that the community got behind this, after that tragic fire, and then the city stepped in to be able to keep the future of the station alive and well for generations to be able to enjoy.
Yeah, it's a special place. It truly is. And I encourage anyone who you don't have to be a rail fan to enjoy this place. You can come just to enjoy the building, enjoy the atmosphere. Uh, think about how people used to live and the importance of the railroad in everyone's life. Quite honestly, before the interstate highway system, this was how you traveled.
Yeah, I mean, if, like you said, if the walls could talk, and or if you could just step back in the time and just to be able to see, passengers, waiting in the station and getting on their train to go to far off destinations, or be able to see, loved ones greeting people at the station, after they came back from a trip. I mean, it's amazing, the history that that building has, and how many people it's affected, not only in your local community, but, throughout the whole entire country, and maybe some world travelers as well. That's for sure.
Oh, absolutely. This was also a major depot during the First and Second World Wars. So I run a tour here in the cemetery of unfortunate people who fell from this area in war, and just the amount of photographs I've seen of people who were drafted going to Europe, going to the Pacific out of this building, and then them coming home after the war. That's also pretty poignant.
Yeah, I mean, it's just amazing. I'm so happy that you're able to preserve the history of the station. I thank you so much for joining me. We love to have you on again. If like if there's anything new that you want to promote or let us know, keep in touch with us, because I'm looking forward to learning more about this depot, and I'm sure our audience has learned a great deal about it. And hopefully, when they're traveling through Virginia, they make this a stop. To be able to rail fan there and to be able to check out the history of the town and this depot. So, really awesome. Thank you so much, Casper, for joining us this evening. If you'd like to learn more about the train station, visit their website, suffolktrainstation.com. That's suffolktrainstation.com. And they are open 7 days a week from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. So make sure you check it out anytime that you're traveling through Virginia. Certainly a great place that's rich with history and a great location to do some rail fanning. We just want to remind you to stay connected with Train Aficionado. You could follow our website by going to trainaficionado.com and even sign up for the Trackside Bulletin on our website. And help support our program by shopping our store. You can purchase t-shirts, hoodies, coffee mugs. A portion of those funds go to help to bring this show to you each and every week. Make sure you follow, like, and subscribe to our social media as well. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. And make sure you hit that subscribe button. Thank you for joining us this evening on Train Aficionado Live. I'm Jonathan Higgins. Safe rail fanning out there.